Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and it's a great honor to welcome back Steve Greenfield to look into his crystal ball at Automotive Ventures. Steve, welcome back to the Roundtable.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Steve, we had so much interest last event when you spoke, and a lot of the topics that you brought about really resonated with the audience. So I got to tell you, there's a lot of anticipation to hear about what you got on the go. And by the way, I see all that you're doing on social media with a lot of these new companies. Some I know, some I don't. I'm learning about. So it's a great education that you're bringing to the entire industry.
Well, thanks, Ted. I mean, yeah, I feel very lucky to be able to interact with so many entrepreneurs who are innovating in the space. And then I spend a lot of my time traveling now, spending with owners of dealerships, working with them to understand how they see the future unfolding and what their biggest concerns are, which makes me smarter and more aware of the companies we need to go find to go help these dealers succeed into the future. So it's a great place to be. And I'm super excited to share some of that with you today.
I'm excited to learn. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, great. Well, I'm excited to be here in May, and I love the theme. I grew up as a Star Wars kid, so I love the theme. But let's jump right in because, as I said, I'm doing a lot of travel, both to 20 groups as well as to dealerships across the U.S. and trying to find the most progressive, sort of forward-thinking dealers to think through sort of like, what does the future look like? Because, on any given day, you pick up automotive news and there's more news about like how OEMs are changing their relationship with dealers, how EVs are going to be much more reliable and have many fewer moving parts, and the service intervals are going to be much longer. And, for dealers to be able to digest all of this information, it's a lot to take in. And I think that, dealers need a thought partner out there, and we're trying to be that thought partner to help them think through what does the next few years look like and what are the implications for their business. So I just added to this slide here, as you can see, and hopefully your viewers can see here. Mm-hmm. These are some, but not all of the changes that are coming to automotive that are some more immediately impacting dealers and some are a little further off. But, we've got, to run through these quickly, you've got, the focus on the consumer convenience. I mean, I think consumers' expectations, especially with COVID, have been really recalibrated upwards across many different verticals outside of automotive. You think of, I receive now boxes every day on my doorstep from Amazon. It's been a year now that I haven't gone to a grocery store. And I'm very spoiled, but I have groceries delivered to the front door. And I think that I'm not atypical right now. I mean, I saw numbers recently that more than half the Americans are Amazon Prime subscribers and pay for that subscription. So I think a lot of us have become much more reliant on convenience. Now, the next is margin compression. And in the last 2 years, we haven't heard a lot about this. But there was a lot of talk pre-COVID around how dealers were under attack from the front end of the deal and the back end of the deal in terms of margin and in service and parts, et cetera. And I think that margin compression will start to accelerate again as we come out of this new car inventory supply chain issue. Entrance of big technology players. We've seen obviously Google and Facebook and others positioning. We haven't really seen Amazon get into car sales yet, and what the impact it's going to have. But we know that the big technology players are positioning themselves for entrance into the space. And we need to really think about what those entrants might look like and what the implications might be on dealers. I don't think I have to go too much into depth about electrification, but from the sale of the vehicles to the servicing of the vehicles, what parts will be available, technician skills that we're going to need, the tools to work on these vehicles, and then, what the implications are for right to repair bills that are out there lingering, all are going to have an impact on how dealers look at, servicing and selling these electric vehicles. And then the next two, I would say, build to order and then selling directly to the consumer. These are definitely top of mind for dealers right now. You've seen some of the news just before NADA that Ford was going to separate their brands into internal combustion engine and electric vehicles. A lot of these electric vehicles, as they come out, the only way the consumer can order them is to kind of pre-order them. You think of the F-150 Lightning. And, there's a lot of friction that dealers are feeling because, I've been speaking with dealers recently who have far more orders for a Lightning or a Hummer, then they're getting allocations from the OEMs, and it's putting them in a bit of a pickle because you've got loyal customers who say, well, I thought I had pre-ordered this from your dealer. And then they have to call them up and say, I'm not getting that vehicle, and effectively drive them to a competitive dealer to go buy the car. And it's just causing a lot of friction. And I think we're going to see the same thing with servicing vehicles. And then, autonomous vehicles. And this is more around just the level of sophistication of the technology that's going into these cars. There are no longer minor fender benders. There's thousands of dollars of electronics in the bumpers of these vehicles. Total loss thresholds are being changed as a result of that. And the cost to repair vehicles is getting much more complex. And the vehicles are becoming more reliable, as we've seen over the last 20 years. I think with EVs, they're going to become even more reliable and not to have to come in for service as often. Mm-hmm. I think, Ted, you and I talked about maybe on the last call about over-the-air updates and the implications those are going to have on service operations for dealers. But I think that there's a lot of uncertainty about how the dust is going to settle on all these issues. And all of this is under the auspices of like consolidation, driven by large public dealer groups like Lithia. And for a dealer that is sitting on more cash because they've been more profitable the last couple of years, they have a hard time going out and buying physical stores because the valuations are higher than they've ever been, compounded by the fact that there's more profit than there's ever been. So I think, top of mind, these are the big level themes before we go into more depth that, we're having conversations with. And I think all of these things to some degree are top of mind for dealers right now across America.
Yeah, I think these 10, if you will, Steve, they are very top of mind. And again, the next couple of years, it's going to be really interesting to see how all this plays out.
No doubt, no doubt. So I'll with your permission, I'll advance to the next slide here.
Yeah.
And let's dig in, because like I said, we're having conversations with owners, and it's very, very interesting when you actually get some time with the owner, and you can spend a couple of hours diving into like where their areas of concern are across those previous themes, but even just going into each of their P&Ls, each of their profit centers of the dealership, to understand sort of where they see opportunity. And I had a bit of a chance to document all this ahead of this call today. But here's an example of some of the themes that we're seeing. But the two broad categories up top in red is one, the pace of change is accelerating by any measure. The last 20 years, 25 years since the beginning of the internet, we thought things had been changing quickly. But with COVID and the microchip shortages and now everything that's going on with the retail model, the pace of change is only accelerating. And I think it's becoming increasingly frustrating for the average dealer just to stay abreast of all this change.
Yeah.
The other topic on the right is we are talking to dealers who are anticipating coming out of the inventory shortages that we are going to have to look at all the SG&A and how dealers spend money on humans and software and in other categories, and try to figure out where there might be efficiencies. And I think this is a fascinating area because, as you know, most of the innovation, the technology innovation in the space in the last 20 years has been either on the variable ops side, where it's been like, does it help me drive one additional sale? Or on the fixed ops side, where it's like, help me become more customer centric, right? It's CRMs, it's following up with the consumer, it's encouraging a consumer to pay for turn down service, these kinds of things, or selling more parts. I think we are going to go into an era where there's going to be a whole new set of innovations that occur that we'll see at NADA in a few years, which is all going to be about how do you help dealers become more profitable by effectively taking costs out of their operations. And we're spending a lot of time digging into the areas where they either perceive there's inefficiencies or fat, and what the solutions might be to address those things. So if I could do anything for the entrepreneurs that are listening in today, connect with me to understand better what dealers are asking for, because I think this area of finding efficiencies in their cost structure is going to be top of mind for dealers over the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow. Love that. And actually, We've had some conversation here on the at the conference, about finding efficiencies and the need to do that. And this is probably a great time, Steve, to do that. Coming off 2021 with record profits at the dealership level, it's a really good time to assess where they are.
Yeah, I think there are dealers out there like, Brian Benstock, who we all know and love, who say, the best time to fix the roof is when the sun's shining. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of dealers right now, I think, as I talk to vendors, they don't want to change things, right? Things are good. So they don't want to be making changes. But I would argue like any time in life where you've got record profitability is the time to introspect and say, where can we become more efficient? Knowing that we're living through kind of this golden age right now, where I don't believe dealership profitability is ever going to be as high as it is right now. And, it's a good time to be looking at the business and scrutinizing opportunities for improvement.
How concerned, Steve, should dealers be on the fixed operations side of the business? With all that's coming, with EVs, and like you mentioned, the talk about perhaps the manufacturer, going to a different model to be able to sell those vehicles. What do you think in terms of fixed operations?
So I think it's a mixed bag, and to put 50-50 both ways. So I would say the headwinds that are going to work against us are the fact, as I said earlier, these EVs are going to be much more reliable, and the service intervals are going to be much longer. And other than changing tires, because the cars weigh more and have more torque, there isn't going to be a lot of reasons for consumers to come in to the store. And I think that's going to be compounded by the fact that a lot of the minor stuff can be upgraded via software updates that can be pushed to the consumer overnight while they're sleeping. I think that the countervailing, benefits to dealers are the cars are going to get much more complex. So the electronics in the cars are going to get much more complex. It's frankly going to be dangerous for the average independent shop to be working on an EV that's got thousands of volts that might, kill a technician that doesn't know the right protocol and have the right tools and the training. So I think that, if we thought that hiring technicians was hard in the past, I think the unique skill set we're going to need for technicians to be able to work on these very complex vehicles is going to get harder. But when you think of the defect rate at the end of the warranty, where consumers in the past, my understanding, you know better than me, but 70% of consumers would not go back to the franchise channel and would go seek out the independent channel. Now I don't think it's going to be a possibility. I think that the cars are going to be more complex. You're going to need specialized tools and specialized skill sets to work on the cars. So I think that if anything, it's going to engender a lot more loyalty for consumers to get the work done at the franchise dealer body. So I think that's countervailing to me. So while we'll see the cars less frequently, I think loyalty will be a lot higher because the average consumer is not going to trust an independent shop to work on these cars and get everything right. Especially, you think about autonomy, for example, right? Yep. All of these cameras and radar and sonar all need to be calibrated because, our lives are at stake if these things are out of whack. And I think we're going to be trusting the franchise dealer body to effectively be working on these devices, these enhanced electronic devices on cars.
What you say falls exactly in line with what we're hearing. Greg Penske spoke at our most recent event, and he said that he believes that dealers over the next 5 years are going to need to hire people who are more technically inclined, simply because of all this change, this radical change, Steve, that's coming to our business.
Yeah. So, technician shortages, as we've heard for the last 5 years or so, are going to continue to be bad and challenge. And dealers are going to have to be very creative with how they find and onboard and keep technicians, and they don't get sniped off for a couple dollars more per hour, as we hear happens. But I think that, the creativity around that, but, these technicians are going to be worth their weight in gold because the ones that do get certified and have the tools are going to be sort of high in demand, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you very much. Love it.
So I think that, other things, just looking at this chart here in terms of, some of the things that I'm most interested in are frankly, service department engagement tools. So, we've been talking to dealers that would love an automated way to follow up with consumers, take humans out of the equation, call it AI, call it what you will, and find a way for a consumer that turns down work to get followed up after 7, 14, 28 days, and in gentle reminders to say, hey, we see that you turned down work, but we'd love to encourage you to come back in, or maybe we can come pick up your vehicle to get additional work done. Dealers are asking for this kind of technology, and we're seeing some of it out in the industry, but I think there's plenty of opportunity there. And then the other area that really excites me quite a bit is, anywhere where there's duplicative work being done. And I think you've had Jim Roche from WarCloud, for example, on before. And, his company, we've been really excited to be able to invest in WarCloud. We were one of his early investors and huge champions of that company, and Jim, just a great guy. But, he's a great example, on the warranty processing work. A lot of it's repetitive processes that are done by a clerk. And he's automating all that for the benefit of the dealer. There aren't any errors. There's always an audit trail. The payments are quicker, and you take humans out of the equation. And I think what Jim's doing with WarCloud can be applied to many, many different areas across the dealership by looking at anywhere there's a human filling out repetitive forms and then automating it. And that person can be freed up to do higher value work than these repetitive tasks, which makes it hard to hire people and retain people and drive employee engagement. So I think, like I said, we're going to see a whole bunch of technologies like WarCloud come about across many areas of the dealership, which I think are going to be great for the dealer because they can remove humans from the equation. Things will be done more quickly, more accurately. Everything will be 100% auditable. And it's an exciting new era, I think, of new technology solutions that we're going to see across the space.
Exciting time, Steve. Exciting stuff ahead. Love it.
No doubt, no doubt at all.
Our audience, of course, we have not just dealers, but we've probably got a lot of suppliers and vendors who are all interested in getting your attention. Steve, you're a great resource for the industry, and we continue to watch the things that you bring to the surface. But, if people want to reach out to you, our dealers and such, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can go to automotiveventures.com. That's the easiest way to track me down. You can find me on LinkedIn, Steve Greenfield. But just my email is very simply steve@automotiveventures.com, and you can track me down. So just let me know if you're a vendor looking to raise money, if you're a dealer looking to get help on this complicated landscape, and would love to have a conversation around that. I try to be as available as I can to the world, and like you, Ted, trying to do everything I can to help the health of this automotive ecosystem.
Love it, Steve Greenfield. Steve, what a great space to be in right now. Automotive, retail, service, parts, body shop, all the changes that are coming, all the innovations, and of course, our resilient dealer body as well, that always seems to figure it out, okay, probably better than anybody else. So appreciate all that you do, Steve.
Ted, thank you for having me, and good luck with the rest of the conference.
Steve, thank you, and we look forward to having you back again. Steve Greenfield from Automotive Ventures here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.